talking about that earlier today, the weather in Europe. She sent me a video of snow where she lives, which is actually by the beach. Sorry, just...
Yeah, it's a funny video because it's my backyard and there's a lemon tree and it's full of snow. So it's very yeah. But it lasted for like 1 hour. But it was pretty cool. I think like I've seen snow in my hometown like 3 times in my entire life. Like it's not normal. It should not be happening.
Yeah. We have some snow now and then, but this is exceptional. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm based in London, and I was saying, I don't know if it was just me because I actually spent the holidays in some pretty warm weather, but when I got back, it's been frighteningly cold, and I've been feeling it pretty badly. So it seems, yeah, all of Western Europe has been, pretty cold recently.
Yeah.
I live in a land of sunshine and warmth in LA, but for Christmas I go to my parents' place on the East Coast in Rochester, New York, and it snows every single time. We got like 5 or 6 inches of snow this Christmas, and it's always fun. It's like tough to spend the entire winter there, like when I was growing up, but I miss it in LA sometimes. But then it's nice to come back to sun and warmth and beaches.
Yeah, Paul, I can't remember if we talked about that, but my dad's actually from Ithaca, and I go there for the holidays most years, not this year actually. But yeah, upstate New York, definitely known for its snow. It gets cold up there.
Nice, yeah. Ithaca,
But yeah, I mean, it's a great place to be for the holidays. You know, it makes it feel very holidays. It's appropriate. And this year was my first year ever spending the holidays in warm weather, and it felt very un-holiday.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if I'll do it again. I missed the snow.
Yeah, it helps with the Christmas spirit, definitely.
Okay, well, we just passed the 5-minute mark, so I don't want to go much past that. And I see people are still rolling in, but I guess we'll just get started. Hey, Lana, and hey, Graven, good to see you guys. I don't know if anyone's new this time. I was going to give people an opportunity. We did intros at the end of last call. If someone wasn't on last call and wants to introduce themselves, maybe just raise your hand right now and we can give an opportunity to do that. Otherwise, I'll just jump right into things. I don't see any. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Should we start the recording?
I think my AI is in here and should be recording.
Perfect.
So,
right.
So we should be good. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to just, if there's no one new, I don't see any hands raised. I wanted to start with just a quick agenda for the call and maybe some high level objectives. This call is the second call of the CoGov collaborative governance hackathon, as we're calling it. Part of the redesign, the governance redesign for GoodDollar. And before the holidays, we had the first call, which was centered around the mission, vision, and purpose for governance within GoodDollar, for the Good DAO itself, which we had a very interesting call about. I posted the summary of that call for people who are interested on the forum. And the outcome of that call, I also posted a rough draft of what will end up being what I'm calling the North Star document for Good DAO governance. So I'll just quickly share my screen. That is up on the forum as well. It's this post. And I wanted to emphasize, I welcome any participation async on this. So any feedback, ideas, thoughts. I tried to take as much of the ideas from our first conversation as possible and stuck them in here. We spoke a lot about how GoodDAO should be focusing on coordinating funding for public goods across like the broader refi ecosystem, enabling participatory governance that is required of an inclusive alternative monetary system, and then also supporting and growing the GoodDollar ecosystem by allocating resources towards aligned projects. So going down here to the mission, vision, purpose section, I drafted these three. We don't need to go into too much detail today on them because this call is a little bit different. I want to kind of move forward from this, but please have a look on the forum if you haven't already and are interested. And like I said, I welcome any async participation, discussion, feedback on that document. So that was kind of the outcome of the first call that we had. I'll stop sharing. And then what I want to do is kind of take that foundational discussion. I want to use the results of the poll that I sent out. So thank you for everyone who did respond to the questions. Those questions were meant to, help the async discussion along, of course, but also kind of bridge this discussion we had about mission and vision to this discussion that I want to have today, which is kind of creating a more tangible, concrete idea about the governance framework and structure that we can co-design for GoodDollar. And so that's kind of the objective for today's call. I want to say the roadmap for the rest of the CoGov campaign is going to be after this call. I want to draft kind of like a spec or an outline for a new governance structure for GoodDollar, which I want this call really to be more of like a brainstorming session for that. So I want to kind of go wide on this discussion during this call. I will be drafting that outline before the next call. So that's going to be in 3 weeks' time. And that final call for CoGov will be to be a little bit more focused so we can get into like the details together. So that's kind of how I'm envisioning the rest of this collaborative process going. And like I said before, I really want to stress the importance of async feedback. Please feel free to hop in the forum or in the Telegram group to provide any thoughts, ideas you're having in between each one of these community calls. So I wanted to just pause there. I also want to speak as little as possible this time because I know I spoke a little bit last time. And so I'm going to just end there. If anybody has any questions before we actually jump into the discussion, just raise your hand and we can discuss them now. I'm not seeing anything amazing. I hope that means that I'm explaining everything perfectly. Probably not, but so for today, what I wanted to hop into, so much like last time, actually should have probably linked this. So in the chat, I'm going to link a Figma space like we did last time. So everybody, if you could please just hop in there. Please let me know if you have any issues accessing the space. And I'm going to share my screen here as well so people can follow along if they want. So you can see up on the first, where we kind of spent our time last call, right? So these were the ideas that we had around the mission, vision, and purpose. Go south of that. So this is for today's call. So this is all about the framework and architecture of GoodDAO governance, like I mentioned. And so in this first station, what I'm hoping to do, what I put there is actually a list of the statements from the poll. So if you didn't fill out the poll, no problem. Don't worry about it. But what I took here are some of the statements that, the Agora app is actually very cool. It does a lot of cool analytics on the results of the polling. And if you haven't tried it yet, I recommend it. It's pretty fun. But these first stickies are the sticky notes that received wide consensus from the participants of the poll. So the green stickies are ones that people, like pretty much everyone agreed on. The red ones being the ones that people pretty much all disagreed on. So I actually, you can take a moment to read those statements. However, I wanted to spend the majority of our time actually in the second grouping, which are the divisive ones, which are actually did not receive much consensus at all in terms of the, if people agreed with them, disagreed with them. There's also an unsure answer. And so what I'm hoping to do is take, I think I'm going to take 3 minutes is pretty fast. Let's take 5 minutes. So in case if people didn't get a chance to answer the polls, they can familiarize themselves with these statements. And however, the main exercise that I wanted to kick off with is to take these red and green dots and allocate them to the divisive statements based on whether you agree, which would be represented by a green dot, or disagree with it, represented by a red dot. And I want to kind of use that as the foundation for today's discussion. Don't do it for the consensus ones. Like I said, the consensus ones, I just wanted to highlight. We can also discuss those as well if people find one of those statements interesting. I do want to kind of start broad here, like I said, so happy to have it as kind of an open conversation, but I do want to kind of spend a little bit more time on the divisive statements. So let's take 5 minutes. Read the statements and allocate your votes to the bottom 5 ones, the divisive ones. And then we can kind of discuss them. And then we're going to use this as the basis for the rest of the discussion, which will be to talk a little bit more tangibly about the governance framework and architecture. So yeah, going to start the clock now. And let's go ahead.
Where do you get the yellow dots?
I changed a couple to yellow. I didn't feel good either saying yes or no to a couple of them.
Same, I replicated the idea.
Great. That'll make for even better discussion then. I'm seeing that second statement ended up not being that divisive after all. So yeah, I don't know what the results of the poll were telling me there. All right. We have a minute left, but it looks like most people are done allocating. So I might just cut it short because I want to leave room for discussion. Pause there. Just cut music. Okay. I don't know if people actually ended up hearing that music, but okay, great. I hope this is a fun exercise. I mean, I had fun time creating these statements, and yeah, let's jump right into it. So it does seem like a couple of these statements ended up being pretty divisive, except for the second one, which we don't have to talk about unless somebody has something they want to comment on. I see we have a couple overzealous people up here actually allocating to the consensus ones, which is fine. Actually, maybe let's start just as a first one. There's a brave soul who put the red dot on this consensus green sticky want to talk about why they think it is not okay that some good DAO members have more governance power over others. If you're in the crowd, raise your hand, red dot. Otherwise, we can move on if you're not feeling like discussing. Okay, that is fine then. No worries. Then let's move down to this first divisive sticky, which is a very general statement, but it does look like we have some differing opinions. So the statement being, inclusive governance systems are always preferable to closed governance systems. Does somebody want to offer up their opinion either for or against, or one of the yellow ones, I guess, which represent unsure?
Can you share an example of what you had in mind when you wrote that?
Sorry, Hadar?
Can you give an example of what you had in mind, like an inclusive versus closed system?
I think in Web3 we like to use the words like permissioned and permissionless. I think something along the lines of that. I'm also happy for other interpretations, but essentially needing the permission to participate in governance, or if it's completely open to whomever wants to participate. Go ahead, Adar, kick it off.
Okay, so from my point of view, I wrote that it's okay, but that it's preferable, but maybe it's not always. I mean, it depends like on the level of governance. I mean, if you have like, for example, something could be a group of experts, right, that take decisions, and they are experts that have been chosen. So inside the group, it's it's permission. It's not permissionless. Not everybody can join this group, and then this group create a decision.
So I'm hearing that you think the overall structure should be open, but then within the structure, there should be more kind of like substructures that are more permissioned or less inclusive. Yeah, does anybody have either a similar opinion or maybe something counter to that idea?
For me, it's a way that it's inclusive in a sense that everybody can participate, but that doesn't mean that everybody participates in the same way.
So is that different like amounts of participation or participating to different parts of the DAO or both?
It can be like participating like different parts of the DAO or in different ways. Even like in this, like in the exercise that we are doing now in the CoGov, right? Like we first create like a committee, but then we're opening the process to other people. So it's inclusive, but it's different. So everybody has the opportunity, but the way that they participate on it is also different, depending on whether expertise or any other source.
Go ahead, Han.
Yes, I was thinking about this, that maybe it's very difficult to get everyone included, and some sort of that everybody could be included, but if there would be a system that you could delegate your influence to, like a board or something, or a steering group or a steward group, something like that, then you could have influence for everybody, but you don't need to be involved on a day-to-day basis or even a monthly basis to be able to participate. So you could be involved, but then through representation.
So in that case, what does inclusivity mean to you?
And everybody could participate, it will be included, but it will be delegated to people who are working on it on a daily basis and know all the ins and outs of the system.
So in terms of participation, like the people, like in the agency that they have in the system is to be able to choose who they delegate specific tasks to. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Something like that, yeah. So that it would be much easier to participate on just delegating it to someone you feel aligned with, and then those can make the decisions on a daily basis.
Okay, Kotabi, go ahead.
I think I'm gonna echo some of the comments that have been made already, but like in my opinion, everyone should have a voice. Not necessarily everyone should have a vote, or like I'm okay with people having different level of votes depending on how engaged they are, and how many other voices maybe they represent if there is like some delegation. And then I also agree with Hadar, and I agree in general with the topic of like having some committees, because like some decisions need to move faster. And there is like a sticker above that also said not every decision should go through the DAO. So like having some committees and some things for where maybe the decisions need to be taken in a smaller group. But like general direction, I think it's important to go with DAO decision and with more inclusive participation. The overall goals and direction, the specific way of how to do it, I think that is more into like committees and working groups. That's just my thoughts.
Go ahead, Laura.
Hello. I think this point is very important, the point of the delegation, because it's about trust. I have some experience of DAO, and I have created a model that was based on a token, So I understand from the votes that it's not a policy that is very agreed upon in the community, but in my structure, what I had created to manage delegation was a way for people that have the chance to make proposals to the DAO by having the token of the DAO, in my case, and they could allow other people to make proposals delegating their tokens, by delegating their tokens. And in this way, we had the trusted groups that could make proposals to the DAO, and the other groups trusted by these trusted groups that could make proposals to the DAO. And it was a way of opening the discussion and allowing delegation within the community and allowing the ecosystem to grow based on trust. And I understand this is not the way that you are going, but if I understand clearly, maybe this could be a framework to establish a delegation mechanic, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And please post that at our next part of this discussion, which is like the implications of what we're discussing now in terms of the governance framework that we can design for GoodDollar. So make sure I want to see a post-it note of that for the next part. I think this is like super interesting already, what we've been discussing, and moving to the next sticky, which I think, even though we got agreement on, so this is it is acceptable that only a small percentage of GoodDAO members actively participate in governance. I'm very interested in this. For me, it's kind of a tension between these first two stickies, right? Where we generally agree that more inclusive governance is always preferable to closed governance systems. However, we also agree that it is acceptable that only a small percentage of members actually participate. So I guess my question here is, how do we balance those two statements? Like, how can both be true? Is it delegation? So we've been talking about delegation already extensively, and obviously we see delegation across most of the major DAOs that exist today. So is it just delegation? Like, does that solve all of the problems here? Or are there other ways, other ways that we can kind of square those two statements and how both of them can be true at the same time? I don't know if anybody wants to offer up an opinion or just a general opinion about the first two stickies as well. Go ahead, Han.
Well, you need to do something about it, because you cannot discuss things with 100,000 people. That's just impossible to discuss everything with everybody who is receiving GoodDollars. There's so many people, so that way it's acceptable that not everyone can participate in governance. It's just too many people. You cannot talk about, and even if it grows, it's like a million people. How are you ever going to do a good discussion with 1 million people?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, just a quick general comment, I guess, but I would say it depends on priorities, depends on the phase. There's always a trade-off between practicality and more inclusion. Inclusion also has administrative costs and efficiency, right? Unless everything is 100% automated, things take longer. So at one phase, the priority might be to get things done, set things up, and create some, a minimum sort of threshold of value and institutionalized processes that are working efficiency. Once things are up and running, then of course inclusivity always becomes a bigger and bigger priority and a more practical priority, right? If you can't have 100% of both, you see that in the sort of in the physical world, in politics as well. You know, when you have a sort of an emergency situation, there's less inclusivity, right? There's more centralization to get things done with a sort of a smaller group, because time is important and effectiveness is a bigger priority. When it's not such an emergency and things are running reasonably well and people are reasonably happy, then inclusivity becomes more sort of affordable as a priority.
I mean, it's kind of like the progressive decentralization idea that was popular initially. So starting off more centralized and decentralizing when you can afford to. Yeah, Hadar, I don't know if you were going to say something. You unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I guess, you know, we can't expect it's the same thing. It's the higher level governance, and then you have like the lower hierarchies. So yeah, maybe it should be more inclusive on the higher levels, where you know, most people need to take a few decisions during a year, but also we have a lot of decisions that most people don't really want to be involved, and they just want to have things that are just running.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like we have fair consensus on that point. So I'll move forward for the sake of time, because I want to make sure we have time for the second half of the discussion as well. These next two stickies, I feel like we can tackle somewhat together. So a token being the best way to allocate governance power in a DAO. And then the non-financial incentives, things like reputation, influence, and access, being more important than financial rewards for governance participation. You know, both of these stickies kind of speak to how the piping, right, of governance, like how the power is allocated, and you know, how engagement is actually ensured and people are actually participating in governance. So I don't know if somebody wanted to tackle one of these two statements, their thoughts on how power should be allocated, or how participation should be incentivized in governance. I see your hand is raised, Hadar. Maybe let's see if others have an opinion before hopping to you, or as we wait for others to form their opinions, you can go ahead, Hadar.
Yeah, I disagree with the non-financial incentives. I think that at least in the reputation and so on, it works if it's like a very open and small community. Then that's where you might want. That's where your reputation might work. And I know that it's important. For example, let's say in our community in the kibbutz, then the people that take more, that are chosen into public roles, you know, it's very important for them to be acknowledged, right? Because it's a community, they need to feel that, right, they are making the right decision, that everybody supports their decision, and so on. But in Web3, where people are much more disconnected, and it's all about, right, what do I get out of the system, of the protocol? How does it serve me? So I believe that participation in governance, like in Web3, the people has to see what's the value that's going to come out for them. Why should they participate?
Well, we had a lot of green agrees on that sticky note. So does somebody want to take the other side of that argument? Kotabe, I see you raise your hand. I don't know if that was for the same sticky note or not.
Yeah, well, I want to tie a couple of things together. Not necessarily I'm going to take the other side, but first, I on the topic of progressive decentralization, I also really agree, and I also want to bring here. I think that like governance should start lean, because I agree with. I think it was Amin who mentioned that there is or Han, I don't remember, that there is a cost. There can be a big cost of decentralization and governance, and it can be like a financial cost, but it can also be like in terms of time, in terms of decisions, like in terms of like kind of like what's the word that I'm looking for? Taking energy out of the people because of the discussions and the frictions. So I like if I learned, I've been like very engaged in governance in Give It, and I've seen us move towards like from starting like fully decentralized all decisions to like actually maybe it makes way more sense to decentralize ones that like the people that are working harder to make this succeed, like actually it's kind of like succeeds, and there is more of a demand for more decentralization and more different decisions. But that's just like a thought from my perspective and what I've seen in Give It. And then tying these things together, I just, and then the reason why I said the first part was because I think that lean governance is very important. And I like a token might or might not be the best way. That's why I put like the yellow dot there. Might or might not be the best way. Like a token can be very straightforward. It can also be favor captured, but I don't know if that is something that we need to worry at this moment. And that's why I believe that this kind of like progressive decentralization and lean governance is like I think some of these problems, it's important to be thinking about them, but some of them it's like they might be more important to think about them at some point in the future. But just a thought on these things. And the same for the second sticky note, like non-financial incentives. I think they are very important. I think I do see like a smaller group probably being more engaged, and I don't think that that's necessarily bad. Like as long as that smaller group is engaged, and there is kind of like and they all have some governance power. It's okay if it's 3 or 4. It's better. It can be better than 1. And I think it does serve the purpose of having governance, even if it's 3 or 4 people, organizations or people. Well, maybe not 3 or 4, but like a small group that are more engaged. And I don't know if it's going to be better to have financial or non-financial incentives. I do believe that it might be like a smaller group, and then reputation might play a big role there. But that I am more in the yellow on these 2 sticky notes. So I don't know. That was a lot of random thoughts, but I hope that they make sense to you and they are helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Super interesting. Go ahead, Paul.
So yeah, I was one of the minority greens on the token is the best way to allocate governance power. And I think so. What I kind of mean by that is that I think a token is the best way to represent ownership in a community, and the ideal governance token is a distribution of ownership that reflects the different levels of meaningful participation that each individual has within that community. Not necessarily that directly then ties into governance power. And I think the kind of, that's like the importance of the governance mechanism is how do you take that token distribution of ownership within the community and then use that to make decisions for different things. And like kind of as we've talked about with like, you don't want everyone voting on every single thing, and you don't necessarily want everyone participating in every decision, and that's okay that it's okay that there's people with ownership in the community that don't necessarily care to make decisions about specific things. And then even more important than that, most people won't have context to make good decisions about most things. So I guess combining a lot of different things that we've already talked about, I've pretty much agreed with everything that I've heard. I think that the challenge is creating a modular decision-making framework where the right people with the right context to specific decisions have the ability to input their decisions, have that reflect their ownership in the community when it's appropriate. But then having some mechanism of decentralization to have those groups of people be dynamic for specific decisions. And so I think one thing that delegates can hurt with there is that assigning delegates, especially broadly, to a lot of different decisions does not generally help with getting people with the right context to make decisions. What you wind up with there is a specific group of people, and that can like kind of unfold in like a lobbying type of governance environment where there's just these really powerful entities, and if you can convince them to vote in the right direction for a specific decision, then that's kind of the game to play there. So yeah, that I like kind of pull back from delegation. I don't think delegation is actually a great mechanism, but modularity and having like a smaller group of people making decisions, I do like and think is really powerful. But the challenge is just getting the right people with the right context to make those decisions.
Yeah, it's super interesting, Paul, and actually keep those ideas for the next phase of this discussion, which I want to move over to in 1 minute. Let's have Dorit, the last person on this topic.
Well, actually, I just wanted to add a remark regarding whether we should incentivize with financial rewards for participation. I think that it's a balance between two, that it should be created in a smart way, and specifically for, it depends on the type of let's say, of the type of protocol you are supporting through this governance process. So let's say if in GoodDollar case, as a non-for-profit, where basically the contribution of people that participate in this ecosystem is towards the community, the overall community, and not for a personal, benefiting of rewards or financial, let's say, benefits. So then I think it's like how you run NGO, in the traditional world, not in the Web3 space. So there it's always combination between, non-financial reward and recognition, the fact that you can influence to make better like the values of what you represent by the operation that you run under this initiative. So I'm basically saying it's not either or, one of the two.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for that section. I think just for the sake of time and because we got pretty broad consensus on this last statement, let's just move over to the second station here, which is the transitioning that discussion about, delegation, about inclusivity, about governance power, how it's distributed, like everything that we've spoken about so far on kind of like a more intangible way. Let's make that more tangible here. And like I said in the beginning, I want this to be we can go very broad with this. So these stickies, I want to take like a couple minutes. Maybe I'll give another 5 minutes, or maybe let's call it like 4. Any you want, you can do 1, you can do 10, whatever. But like the implications of the discussion that we just had, and thinking about GoodDollar more specifically. So like what GoodDollar, the project is, what the community of GoodDollar is, and what governance could be. Write down what the implications for the design of the governance framework and architecture are. So I kind of wrote down the first one just to get things kicked off here. This was from one of the consensus stickies that we didn't mention, but I wrote, one of the implications is that dedicated teams such as committees, councils, etc., and this is like the governance committee we already have in process, are a good idea, and there should be more of them. Okay, so the very broad design implication of some of those statements. So let's just take, well, we're really running short on time. These hours go by so fast. Let's take I guess, 3 minutes and 45 seconds and write down any ideas that come to your mind. It can be as broad or as specific as you want. And this should, the second note there is also, this is all stuff about either the proposal or decision-making processes, the DAO structure, the power distributions, the incentive structure, things like that. So let's go ahead and get kicked off there. Also, let me know as we're doing this if you have any questions. But yeah, go ahead. I also want to say, if anybody has any examples they want to point to, I have like a area on the right. You can just add in a name or a project that you like that you might want to refer to. So. All right, please keep writing. This is not a pencils down situation. So if you have other ideas, please feel free to, add more as we wrap up this call. I already see a lot of ideas there. So, I mean, I'm happy for someone to kind of like offer up something that they wanted to discuss. Otherwise, a couple caught my eye and I'm happy to kind of point that out. Did anybody want to mention anything that we haven't touched on thus far? I think this, one in particular caught my eye because I actually think it can be very divisive, but it's also very relevant for GoodDollar, and it's the governance power to direct the flow of money creation is the incentive for participation. I don't know who wrote that, but if someone, or even if you didn't write it, if you want to comment on that, do we agree with that or disagree with that? Is it enough just to have power over the and say over the way that money is allocated? Is that enough for to incentivize participation?
So that was me. I also wrote that this other ticket here, that participation in committee probably should have some payment, even if symbolic. So yeah, these are my two takes on the incentives for governance. Yeah, I don't know about social social reputation and stuff like that. That's also important. But you also probably need the mechanics for that. How do you celebrate success of people that actually were good in governance? Maybe it relates to someone wrote KPIs to measure success.
Yeah, what is a symbolic payment?
Yeah, even if it's not like your salary, it could be. It also depends where you're from in the world, but
Okay.
you just, hey, okay, I'm getting something. I'm appreciating. It's one way to show.
But it's still real money. It's not imaginary money, even though these tokens sometimes are imaginary. Cool. Yeah. Does anybody want to add anything else? I'm super happy with the ideas that we generated here. I'm going to take time after this call to kind of parse through them and add them to my call summary at the end. But we do have 5 minutes left. I wanted to leave one just to kind of run through the coming weeks to make sure everybody's on the same page of what's coming. What's coming. So does anybody want to take the next 2-3 minutes to offer up any of their other ideas that were written down here, or if you have any comments on other people's ideas that they wrote down? I see governance seasons over here in this corner. Is that kind of like how Optimism has run and how Cello's kind of running now? Is that what that means? I don't know who wrote that.
I wrote that, and yeah, that's I also put in examples like Optimism.
Okay.
Just for that. Yeah, I think seasons allow for people to be engaged in narrower windows of time, and it's a less of a demand from the community, and it can help with engagement if you don't have to be engaged any day or keep checking every week, but having some seasons, and they can go quarterly, which I think it's actually a very good fit because it provides kind of accountability every in a decent amount of time. So I think that's a good practice.
Yeah, I agree. I think, that allows for very a lot of alignment too with the strategic direction of the project itself, and being able to stay on schedule and have very similar goals and objectives for those set time periods. I think it's very good for that as well. Like you said, the accountability thing is huge. Being able to then look back and measure the performance and the success of this specific time period as well. Okay, yeah. Any last comments before I kind of wrap up here? Okay, well, I hope that everybody then enjoyed this session. Like I said, hosting these sessions, for some reason, these hours go by so much faster than I always expect them to. I hope that means that everyone had a good time. Yeah, as far as next steps, so this is the second of the 3 community calls that I had planned for the entire CoGov process. The next one will be in 3 weeks' time. Don't worry, we'll post the invite links well, thank you, Mary, for posting in the chat, but we'll definitely post it in Telegram as well. If people aren't in the Telegram group, though, please drop your handle in the chat right now. I think pretty much everyone is in this call, but if you're not, drop your handle. We'll add you to the chat. That's where all of the async communication is going down, as well as the governance forum, of course. Speaking of the governance forum, I'll make sure to post a summary of this call there, as well as before the next call, much like I posted the draft of the North Star document, which, like I said in the beginning, please, just because we've moved on from the mission and values discussion, please feel free to go back and add comments in the forum or in the Telegram group chat if you have any thoughts on those or on that document. But like I did with that phase, for this next one, before the next call, I will be drafting up an initial spec for a new governance framework 2.0 for $GoodDollar and sharing it with you all. Definitely incorporating a lot of the ideas that we shared today. And then next time on the next community call, I hope to go into a little bit more fine-grained detail on that specification, so we can get kind of down and dirty with that and talk about the actual mechanics and the tooling and things like that. So that's kind of what to expect next. Thanks again for joining. It's amazing to see the continuity between last call and everybody who showed up both times. I think what we're building here is very exciting for this next phase in $GoodDollar governance, the community that we have so far. And there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. So thanks a lot for joining. I hope you're as excited as I am for the next steps. And hope to see you on the next community call, as well as in the Telegram group and online. So thanks everyone. And we'll speak soon.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Thanks, Sam.
Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Sam, you can do it maybe longer next time, at 30 minutes more.
Yeah, maybe for the next time we could do an hour and a half. That's not a bad call. These hours really just go by so quickly. You think it's going to be enough, but then there's just so much more you want to talk about.
For sessions, you need at least an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. I think that's a good call for the next one. But okay, y'all. Yeah, thanks a lot, Hadar. Good to see you. Hoping you've been having a good New Year so far.
Yeah, I'm good. All right. See you later.
Okay. Yeah. Speak soon.